It was just another busy night at the exclusive restaurant, and waitress Sophia was rushing between tables, trying to meet the demands of the wealthy patrons. But when a little boy, no older than 7, sat at a corner booth by himself, she barely glanced his way. After all, it was a high-end place, and kids usually didn't belong there. What Sophia didn't know was that the boy, wearing a simple blue shirt and jeans, wasn't just some child lost in a luxury restaurant. No, this boy was about to turn her world upside down because he was the owner, and this was all part of a test. Before we start, like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. Now let's begin. Sophia had been working at the Grandeur, the city's most prestigious restaurant, for over 2 years. She knew how to handle high-profile customers masterfully, juggling orders and smiles, making sure the wealthy guests got what they wanted. But there was one thing she hadn't fully grasped: the importance of who she served. On that particular evening, the dimly lit restaurant was filled with the usual crowd, the well-dressed business people, celebrities, and elites. The kind of people who always made her feel like just another face in the crowd. It was then that she noticed him, a young boy no older than 7, sitting at a corner booth by himself. His clothes were simple, nothing like the expensive suits or designer dresses of the other guests. A loose blue shirt, faded jeans, and sneakers. He was alone, quietly watching the people around him as if he belonged there. Sophia raised an eyebrow. Who lets their child dine alone in a place like this? Maybe he was lost. Without thinking much about it, she walked past him, ignoring the boy as she headed toward a table of regular customers who had their usual order ready. She could already feel the heat of the evening rush. The restaurant was buzzing, and there was no time to waste on anyone who wasn't a paying guest. She didn't even stop to ask the boy if he needed anything, assuming he was just some kid waiting for his parents. Besides, the wealthy clientele had her full attention. But as she went about her duties, a strange feeling began to settle in her stomach. Something about that little boy nagged at her. As she passed him again, she heard a quiet voice. "Excuse me, miss." The boy called, his tone polite, yet oddly confident for someone so young. Sophia turned, annoyed. She was swamped with orders and didn't have time for a child. "What is it?" she asked, not masking the irritation in her voice. The boy looked up, his big eyes filled with an unsettling calm. "I'd like to speak with the owner of the restaurant. Is that possible?" he asked simply. Sophia scoffed internally. Maybe he thought he was cute, but he was wasting her time. "The owner isn't here right now," she replied, dismissing him with a wave. She turned to walk away, but the boy didn't move. Instead, he smiled and said, "I'm actually the owner." Sophia froze mid-step. She barely heard the words, but when she turned back to look at him, she saw that his expression hadn't changed. There was something about the calm confidence in his voice that made her question everything. Had she heard that right? "No, sweetheart," she said with a slight chuckle, trying to brush off the awkward moment. "The owner doesn't look like you." The boy didn't flinch. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, sleek phone. He tapped a few buttons and held it out toward her. "If you don't believe me, you can call the office," he said softly. "I'm sure they'll confirm it." Sophia stared at the screen. Her heart skipped a beat. Could this really be true? But she didn't have time to dwell on it. The next customer was already beckoning her. She had work to do, so she walked away, dismissing the encounter as a weird, childish joke. What she didn't know was that at this moment, this very interaction was going to change her life forever. The night continued, and Sophia tried to put the strange encounter with the boy out of her mind. But the more she moved through the restaurant, the more it nagged at her. She'd worked at the Grandeur long enough to know that it wasn't a place where people could just walk in and claim to own the place. Sure, she'd seen eccentric billionaires and celebrities pass through, but they all had an aura, something that set them apart. This boy, however, seemed ordinary. Still, she pushed it aside. The dinner rush wasn't about to slow down. She had orders to take, meals to serve, and high-paying customers to tend to. As she moved from table to table, the boy's words echoed in her mind, but she refused to give in to curiosity. But something else was happening in the restaurant. Sophia could feel the shift in the air. It was subtle at first, a tension that began to build like an invisible thread pulling everything tighter. The buzz of conversation grew quieter, and the staff seemed a little less focused. Even the usual hum of the kitchen felt distant. The boy who had been sitting alone was now gone. Sophia didn't notice his departure until she heard the faint sound of heels clicking against the polished floors. She turned to see the general manager, Daniel, walking swiftly toward her with a serious look on his face. "Sophia," Daniel said, his voice tense, "where is the boy who was sitting at booth 12? Sophia's heart skipped a beat. "He's gone," she replied, confusion creeping in. "Gone?" Daniel's brow furrowed. "He was the owner's son. He's here on a test, to see how the staff behaves with the customers." Sophia blinked, her mind racing. The boy, the owner's son. She remembered the smug, calm smile he had given her. The phone, the way he spoke with such confidence. But it didn't make sense. The owner's son didn't look like him. There was no way. Before she could say anything, Daniel's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, his eyes scanning the message quickly. "I need you in my office. Now," Daniel said abruptly, his tone colder than usual. Now Sophia followed him, her mind spinning. This couldn't be happening. The owner's son? She had been so sure the whole thing was some prank. But if it was true, then what had just occurred? Was the boy testing her, or was she just part of something bigger? As they entered the office, Daniel slammed the door shut behind them. He looked at her with a hard expression. "You don't know who you were dealing with tonight, do you?" he asked, his voice low. That kid is the real owner of the grandeur, and he has a very specific way of testing his staff. He sees how they treat others, how they behave under pressure, and your dismissal of him." He paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. "That's going to cost you." Sophia felt a cold rush of panic sweep through her. The walls seemed to close in around her. "I didn't know," she stammered. You thought he was just some kid." Daniel cut her off. "That's the problem with people like you. You think you know what matters, but you don't. You have no idea what this place really stands for. You don't know the kind of man the owner is." He leaned in, his face inches from hers. "And now," he hissed, "you're going to find out, because I'm calling him right now. And if you thought this was just some game, you're wrong." Sophia's chest tightened. Every fiber of her being screamed in panic. She had always been the hard-working waitress, the one who knew her place. But this was something different. Something far bigger than she had ever imagined. The phone rang, its shrill tone cutting through the tense silence in the office. Sophia's hands trembled as she watched Daniel pick up the receiver, his eyes never leaving her. The weight of the moment felt unbearable, like everything was suddenly shifting. One wrong move, and her career at the grandeur, her entire life here, could be over. "Mr. Harrington, I have her here. Sophia, the waitress. She's the one who—" Daniel stopped mid-sentence, listening intently. His expression changed, the harshness in his eyes softening for just a moment. He nodded, then hung up the phone, still staring at Sophia. A long pause filled the room before Daniel finally spoke. "You're lucky." Sophia's heart raced. "Lucky? The owner. He's willing to give you a second chance." Sophia's mind spun. Second chance? What does that even mean? Daniel stood up and paced around the room, taking his time before responding. "It means that the owner's son, the one you ignored earlier, wants to see what kind of person you really are. He's testing you, Sophia. The way you treat people, the way you respond to pressure, it's all part of his process. But you've already failed one of the biggest tests." Sophia felt like the ground was slipping beneath her feet. She had been too focused on doing her job, too distracted by the rush of the evening, to realize what was really happening. The boy had been watching her. Not just her, everyone in the restaurant. He had seen how she treated him, how she brushed him off. And now the consequences were unfolding in front of her. "You're saying I failed?" she asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel turned to face her, his face a mix of sympathy and cold professionalism. "You treated him like just another kid, and that's a mistake, Sophia. The owner's family doesn't get treated like that. They're the ones who built this place from the ground up. They see everything." He let out a deep sigh. "And now," he continued, "it's up to you to fix this. The owner's son has made it clear. If you want to keep your job here, if you want to stay employed at the grandeur, you need to prove yourself. He's willing to give you a shot. But the next step? That's up to you. Sophia's mind was racing. She had no idea what she was supposed to do now. Was this some kind of game? A twisted test to see who could make it in the high-stakes world of fine dining? She thought back to the boy, the calmness in his eyes, the way he carried himself. But this wasn't a game. This was real, and the weight of that realization hit her hard. You need to go and apologize to him, Daniel continued, his voice firm. Not just some casual, sorry. You need to show him you respect him. You need to prove that you understand what this place represents. The grandeur isn't just a restaurant, Sophia. It's a legacy. And if you want to be part of it, you need to act like it. The thought of facing that boy again, of admitting her mistake, made Sophia's stomach turn. She wasn't sure she was ready for this, but she knew there was no turning back now. She nodded slowly, her voice barely audible. I'll do whatever it takes. Daniel looked at her, his expression softening just a little. Good. Then go. He's waiting. As Sophia turned to leave the office, she felt the weight of the entire evening crash down on her. She had made a mistake, and now she had to fix it. But what if it was too late? What if the damage was done? And what if this wasn't just about a boy testing her? What if this was about something bigger, something that could change everything she knew about the grandeur and the people who ran it? Sophia's steps were shaky as she walked back into the main dining area. The noise of clinking silverware, quiet conversations, and the hum of the kitchen felt like it had all been turned down to a dull roar. Her thoughts were consumed by one question. What now? What would she even say to the boy, the owner's son, who had quietly watched her dismiss him, who now held her career in the palm of his hand? She walked past the bustling tables, her eyes scanning the room for the boy. The atmosphere in the restaurant had changed. There was an unsettling calm hanging in the air, like everyone was waiting for something to happen, and Sophia could feel every pair of eyes on her. The weight of the moment was suffocating. Finally, she spotted him. He was sitting at a table near the back, his feet swinging under the chair as he twirled a fork absent-mindedly in his hand. He was alone again, just as he had been when she first saw him, but this time, something felt different. There was an aura around him, a quiet confidence that made her stomach tighten. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. She couldn't undo what had already happened. But maybe, just maybe, she could prove that she was worthy of a second chance. She had to try. Approaching him, she felt a knot in her throat. The boy didn't look up at her immediately. He just kept twirling the fork, almost as if he was waiting for her to speak first. She stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say. The restaurant's hum seemed to grow louder in her ears, and the seconds felt like an eternity. Finally, she cleared her throat. I owe you an apology, she said, her voice shaky but sincere. I didn't know who you were. I should have treated you with more respect. The boy paused, the fork stopping mid-spin. Slowly, he looked up at her, his eyes locking with hers. There was no anger in them, no malice, just a calmness that made Sophia feel as though she was being weighed and measured in a way she had never experienced before. I understand, he said quietly. It's hard to see people for who they really are, but sometimes people show you who they are by how they treat others. Sophia swallowed, the weight of his words hitting her harder than she expected. He was right. She had judged him without knowing a thing about him, and now she had to face the consequences. I'm sorry, she repeated, her voice stronger now. I didn't realize how important this place was to you, or how important you are. The boy smiled softly, but it wasn't the smile of a child. It was the smile of someone who had seen too much, who understood more than he let on. It's all right, he said. I've been testing everyone tonight, not just you, but I wanted to see how people treated me, how they treated someone they thought had no value. Sophia blinked, confused. So this was all a test? He nodded, his gaze unwavering. Not just for you, for everyone here. The way people act when they think no one's watching says a lot about who they really are. She felt a pang of guilt. The test wasn't just about her. It was about the entire staff, about how they treated him, about how they treated each other. And she had failed. But she wasn't sure if that failure was the end, or if it could be the beginning of something more. I didn't mean to fail, Sophia said. the words coming out almost desperately. But I want to do better. I want to prove myself. Please, give me the chance to make this right. The boy's expression softened, and for the first time since she'd seen him, he looked like a child again. A child with a wisdom far beyond his years. You already have, he said, a quiet confidence in his voice. Now let's see what you do next. Sophia took a step back, her heart racing. She didn't know what this meant, but she knew one thing for sure. Her world was about to change. And the boy sitting in front of her, he was the key. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest as she stood there, staring at the boy. His words echoed in her mind. You already have. He had given her a chance. But what did it really mean? What would she do next? The weight of that question pressed down on her, and in that moment, she realized that she wasn't just being tested by a child. She was being tested by the very foundation of the grandeur itself. The boy turned his gaze back to his plate, his expression still unreadable. She could feel the tension in the air. Like every person in the restaurant, every member of the staff was watching to see how this would unfold. Sophia swallowed hard, trying to steady her breathing. She had to make this right. There was no going back now. I don't know what to say, she admitted, the words slipping out before she could stop them. But I promise, I won't make the same mistake again. I understand now. It's not just about serving food or following the rules. It's about the way people treat each other, the respect they give to everyone, no matter who they are. The boy nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing just slightly. Good, because that's what this place is built on. Respect, integrity, and understanding people for who they really are, not for what you think they are. Sophia felt the sting of his words, but there was something in them that clicked. This wasn't just about her mistake. It was about something bigger. It was about the way people treated one another in this world, the way appearances could be deceiving, and how important it was to look beyond the surface. She had learned that the hard way. I can do better, she said, her voice firmer now, more confident. I want to be a part of this place, of what it stands for. I've been blind, but I see it now. I know what I need to do. The boy studied her for a moment longer before finally standing up, his chair scraping against the floor. Sophia felt her breath catch as he walked around the table to stand in front of her. You're right, he said softly. It's not just about food and service. It's about people, and I think you're ready to understand that. He paused for a moment as if weighing something in his mind. But there's more you need to know. Sophia's heart skipped a beat. More? He nodded, his eyes locking with hers. This restaurant, the grandeur, it's more than just a place to eat. It's a reflection of who we are, a place where the wealthy and powerful come to see and be seen. But it's also a place where the staff are more than just employees. You're part of the story, part of the experience, and that means you have a responsibility too. Sophia felt the pressure of his words sink deep into her bones. She wasn't just working at a high-end restaurant anymore. She was part of something bigger, a legacy, a world she hadn't fully understood until now. I didn't realize, she murmured. I didn't understand what it meant to be part of something like this. The boy's lips curved into a slight smile. Most people don't, but that's why I'm here, to help people see what's really important, to make sure that everyone, no matter who they are, is treated with the respect they deserve. He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a whisper. And you, Sophia, you've just taken the first step. For the first time that evening, Sophia felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had made a mistake, yes, but now she had the chance to fix it. The boy hadn't just given her a second chance. He had given her a new perspective on life, on people, and on what it meant to truly understand those around her. As she turned to leave, her mind was already racing with the possibilities. There was no turning back now. Her journey was just beginning, and whatever happened next, she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer just a waitress. She was part of something bigger than herself, a legacy that would change everything. And as she walked away, she couldn't help but wonder, who else would be tested next? Who else in this restaurant, in this world, would have to face the reality of who they truly were?